Call this meeting to order. Mike, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Ann, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Ms. Genesee Zerker. Here. Mrs. Boring. Here. Mr. Reiner.
Here.
Mayor Lechleiter.
Here.
Mr. Gerber.
Here.
Mr. Keenan.
Here.
Vice Mayor Saleh.
Here. Very good. Thank you. I'm going to begin this evening's meeting with a proclamation recognizing this as Down Syndrome Awareness Month, and I would ask that Art Exhibit Curator Richard Bailey, there you are, sir, and your daughter, I believe, is here, Billy Joe Bailey, and David Guion, if you would join me here at the podium. If you turn around and face the camera over here. That's perfect. Very good. Well, the proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the group photography exhibition, Shifting Perspectives, My Perspective, opens on September 24th and continues through November 8th at the Dublin Arts Council. And whereas for this exhibit, professional photographers partnered with an individual or individuals with Down syndrome to capture the joy and wonder of being human and living with Down syndrome. 9 participants explored the world through a thoughtful process of discovery, using photography as a means for self-expression. 7 of the group members are from Ohio and include photographer Shelley Fisher, who worked with Jennifer Cunningham Fox of Worthington, photographer Keo Kim, who partnered with Kyle McKay of Upper Arlington, and photographer Cameron Sharp of Mansfield, who created artwork with Shane Rusi of Clintonville and Jeremy Enberg of Sunbury. And whereas the curator of the exhibit, who is with us here this evening, Richard Bailey, has partnered with his 14-year-old daughter, Billy Joe Bailey, who is with us here this evening, and both will travel from London, England for the exhibition at the Dublin Arts Council, where they will exhibit their body of work together for the first time. And whereas the Dublin Arts Council previously hosted the U.S. debut of the original UK Shifting Perspectives in 2011 and Shifting Perspectives in the Community in 2012, and whereas the Dublin Arts Council has collaborated with the Down Syndrome Association of Central Ohio to facilitate this project, the new exhibition has been underwritten by Cardinal Health, Nationwide Children's Hospital, BMI Federal Credit Union, and Puffin Foundation West Limited. In addition, sustaining support for the Dublin Arts Council comes from the City of Dublin, the Ohio Arts Council, and the National Endowment for the Arts, and the reception is going to be sponsored by Blue and Fig. Now, therefore, I, Timothy A. Lechleiter, Mayor of Dublin, on behalf of Dublin City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2013 as Down Syndrome Awareness Month in the City of Dublin, welcoming curator and photographer Richard Bailey and his daughter, Billy Joe Bailey, to Dublin, and encouraging all citizens to visit the exhibition Shifting Perspectives, My Perspective, at the Dublin Arts Center. Billy Joe, it looks like you have something to say. Is that right, maybe? Or your dad first? I'll give you the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lechleiter, and council members for the wonderful proclamation, which is very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Just like to say a few words to everybody. Firstly, to say a huge thank you to David from the Dublin Arts Council and all the staff at the Dublin Arts Council for staging another Shifting Perspectives exhibition, and also for inviting myself and Billy Joe to participate. The power of the photographic image is so very important, and that is why Shifting Perspectives exhibition has been able to move people so much over this last 8 years. Over the last 8 years, we have produced a vast body of work that encompasses all aspects of Down syndrome, from showing people with Down syndrome in the workplace, playing sport, getting married, to images that, that show that Down syndrome can occur in every race or culture. We have portraits of pregnant women who know they are going to have a child with Down syndrome and of new mothers with their babies who have Down syndrome. The images in the exhibition ask questions of the viewer, but also inform the viewer. And the fact that David and his team have embraced shifting perspectives and taken it out into your community is such a wonderful thing for me to see. To get local photographers involved and to team them up with local members of the Down syndrome community has proved to be very, very successful, and they have produced a fascinating and entertaining exhibition, which I would urge you all to go and see. So thank you very much once again, Mayor and Council members. And I think Billy Joe would just like to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council members. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. I am very excited and happy to be in Dublin. I am having fun in Dublin. Thank you to David and his team for all the hard work. Please go and see the exhibition and let me know what you think. Go Buckeyes!
Thank you. David, would you like to say a few words?
Well, thank you, Council, for your support of the Arts Council, and we're really appreciative of Nationwide Children's Hospital and Cardinal Health and BMI Credit Union. It's great to know that businesses in the community continue to support the Arts Council. So again, thanks for your support, and it's such a pleasure to welcome back Richard and to have sort of the beginning of the beginning. Billy Joe is really the impetus for the whole exhibition. So we're so grateful to have them here and witness this great exhibition. So thank you.
And David, give us the dates once again,
Yeah,
please.
give us
Yeah, it's tomorrow evening from 6 to 8 is the unveiling, and then it runs through November 8th at the Arts Council.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Billy Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, moving on to that portion of our agenda where we allow citizens to make comments on any item that is not listed on the agenda. We'll begin this evening with Mr. Richard Wolf.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor and members of this Dublin City Council, thank you for this opportunity to address this body. My remarks will center on recent developments with the Tartan Ridge Community Authority situation. At this point, I believe each of you has been made aware of the issues regarding the Community Authority. Through emails, letters, and public testimony at previous City Council meetings, Tartan Ridge residents, including myself and others, have tried to bring to your attention the vexing situation we've been facing. I understand that the wheels of government can often move slowly. Likewise, work can be occurring behind the scenes, which leaves the impression that nothing is being done. However, I feel it's important to speak to you tonight as the Community Authority continues to take actions that are detrimental to the Dublin residents of Tartan Ridge. I'll read my prepared statements, which will demonstrate how, over the past month, this situation has continued to deteriorate. On September 15th, I received an email from Caleb Bell, Counsel for Washington Township, which reads in part as follows, quote, "In July, the Washington Township trustees agreed to seek changes to the authority's community development charge in order to eliminate any fire and EMS millage being charged to your property by the authority. Those changes were approved by the authority in August, and the authority is in the process of recording an amendment to the Declaration of Covenants against your property that will eliminate the fire and EMS millage permanently against your parcel if you record an easement agreement against your parcel requesting fire and EMS services from Washington Township. A recorded copy of the amended declaration will be forwarded as soon as it's available by the authority." This email raises several issues of concern. First, it would appear that Washington Township is moving forward on their position to require that the Jerome Township residents of Tartan Ridge sign an easement in order for Washington Township to continue providing fire and EMS services. Number two, Mr. Bell indicates that an amendment to the declaration will be prepared and recorded with Union County. Item 2 is of most concern. The Community Authority has made 2 previous and unsuccessful attempts to amend the declaration. At that time, the amendments required 2/3 approval by the residents of Jerome Township, and the Community Authority failed to collect the requisite approvals. As Mr. Bell's email would seem to indicate, approval by the residents is no longer required to amend the declaration. What's now changed? It would also now appear that the residents of Tartan Ridge will not be afforded the opportunity to review this amendment prior to its being recorded by Union County. As you may already know from my previous communications with this body, for many residents of Tartan Ridge, I included, the declaration was never disclosed to buyers prior to or during the closing process on their properties, as is required. This morning, I received another email from Caleb Bell informing me that the authority did indeed already proceed and file the amendment. This action has set into motion a process which will create an extremely dangerous situation where fire coverage within Tartan Ridge will be determined on a house-by-house basis, dependent upon whether or not the homeowner has signed the easement. The City of Dublin should also be informed of the following recent discoveries for which a formal investigation should be undertaken. As confirmed by Union County Commissioner Steve Stolte, the Community Authority Board members never filed their bonds. As a quasi-governmental body politic formed pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 349, which is authorized to assess fees and taxes, how can this be allowed? It reads and follows, quote, each member of the board shall post a bond for the faithful performance of official duties and give surety therefore in such amount, but not less than $10,000, as the resolution creating such board shall prescribe. That's 349.04. 2, the community authority clearly falsified to the Union County Auditor about their attempts to request payment of the fees. The community authority certified to the Union County Auditor over a number of years that Tartan Ridge residents were delinquent in their payments to the community authority when no attempts to invoice or collect these assessments were ever initiated by the authority. $88,000 were collected by the Union County Auditor over the past 2 years, and only $2,700 that dispersed to Washington Township for fire and EMS services. Where did the rest of the money go? Number 3, the chairman of the community authority is also the principal employee, the president of Edwards Land Company, and clearly appears to be breaching his fiduciary duty to act in the interests of the residents and is instead acting in the interests of his employer. In fact, the sole beneficiary of any amendment made to the declaration will be the Edwards Land Development Company, while the residents of Tartan Ridge will be required to make separate and private arrangements with Washington Township for provision of fire and EMS services. Is this what the City of Dublin had in mind when the decision was made to annex this property into the city? That the Jerome Township residents should be required to privately hire Washington Township for fire and EMS services, and that the city would become the billing agent? I've approached many of the following agencies in regard to the situation: the State Attorney General's Office, who sent me to the Ohio Ethics Commission, who sent me to the Union County Prosecutor, who sent me to the Union County Commissioners, who sent me back to the Ohio Ethics Commission, who told me it's not in their purview. So we're back to where we started. The City of Dublin initiated this process from which arose the community authority, whose fundamental intent and purpose was to collect and disperse fire and EMS service fees from the Jerome Township residents of Tartan Ridge and disperse these funds to Washington Township. The situation has now devolved to the point that the community authority has abrogated its primary purpose, that being to collect and pay Washington Township for fire and EMS services solely so that Edwards Land Company can collect a road assessment fee. The chairman of the community authority is also president of Edwards Land Development Company. How can this be seen as anything but a conflict of interest? Again, Ohio Revised Code 349.04, quote, all trustees shall be empowered to vote on all members within the authority of the Board of Trustees, and no vote by a member appointed by the developer shall be construed to give rise to civil or criminal liability for conflict of interest on the part of public officials. It's not disputed that this community authority has falsified and used questionable, if not deceptive, means of reaching of its objective to the detriment of the community residents. How can this be allowed to continue? The Tartan Ridge Fire New Community Authority has governmental powers, but evidently has little, if any, apparent means of citizen or ethics oversight, and the board members have failed to file their bonds. The community authority has essentially been given free rein to act independently and has placed its constituents in peril by not providing for fire and EMS services to the residents of Tartan Ridge. Clearly an issue of public safety for which prompt attention and resolution is required. Evidently, to this point, every governmental agency which has been contacted by the residents, Jerome Township, Washington Township, City of Dublin, the Union County Commissioners, the Union County Prosecuting Attorney, the Ohio State Attorney General, and Ohio Ethics Commissions, have all indicated personally to me that there are many questionable and concerning circumstances, but no one has offered any solution. Rather, the issue just keeps getting passed around from one agency to the other. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, who's watching out for your constituents? Finally, short of Jerome Township allowing us to be annexed into Washington Township by conforming the boundaries, I believe there's an extremely easy solution to this situation. All that would need to happen is, one, the current community authority declaration should be repealed. This will eliminate the flawed document that is currently in place. And two, a new community authority declaration should be created that levies a fee to pay Washington Township Fire and EMS service applicable only to the Jerome Township residents and presented to those residents for adoption. That's it. 2 simple steps, and Dublin's original intent would be implemented. The only reason it hasn't happened to this point is because the Edwards Land Development Company and the Community Development Authority are more focused on paying for road improvements than they are on the safety of the residents of Tartan Ridge. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. I'm going to ask our law director and or our city manager to respond, please.
Well, and as we talked about, I think it was at the last city council meeting, we have been in conversations with representatives from Jerome Township and Washington Township over the past year and a half or so. And our original intent and hope was that we would be able to conform the boundaries and so that it would all be in Washington Township. We started down that path, and at one point the Jerome Township trustee said that they no longer wanted to pursue that mechanism to resolve this issue. So we've been working with Washington Township, and the solution that's been determined is the issue of signing the easements. And basically it is an extra process that has to be completed, but it's one that will result in the same amount of revenues being charged and collected to provide the service for fire and EMS. So there is a meeting tomorrow evening to continue discussions. We did receive over the weekend the documents that were voted on at the last meeting, which was held a month or so ago, that those have been recorded with Union County. So we're continuing to work on what the solution of this issue will be.
Marcia, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chief Wu, Washington Township Fire Chief Chief Wu, and I don't know if he's in the audience this evening, but in any case, my recollection is that, I don't know whether it was the last meeting or the meeting before, but he came forward and provided an assurance, you know, with respect to Washington Township answering all calls to this subdivision. Is that correct?
Yes, he did mention that, and there's a total of the area that is in Jerome, there's a total of 90 lots, and 60 of those lots are still owned by the developer, and they've signed the easements. The other 30, that's who Washington Township's working with to get the easements signed. So right now it's a total of 30 properties that we're continuing, or the township's continuing to have discussion. And I don't know as far as the number that have agreed to or have not agreed to sign those documents, but it's a limited number of households as far as those who have not signed off or processed the easements.
But as things stand, to me anyway, the primary issue, first and foremost, is health and public safety, and that's being addressed.
And that's being, yes.
Okay, and then I think I know the answer, but I mean, is the potential solution as simple as Mr. Wolf suggests? I mean, I have to believe if it was, we would have achieved that until now.
We, Jennifer, excuse me, Ms. Rayler, my office has been working on this, and we've had meetings for a year. We've been working with Mr. Caleb Bell, who represents Washington Township, and with Greg Daniels, bond counsel, Ed Squires, who is working on behalf of Washington Township to resolve this. The solution they put forward that they felt would work the best and the quickest was the easement creation. And they created the easement, they recorded it, they all signed off on it, and it's my understanding it will be a presentation tomorrow night. I got the same email that Mr. Wolf read from today. I got it Friday or Saturday, I don't remember. And we put a call into Mr. Daniels to discuss that. I've not hooked up with him today, but I did get the email Friday, and I called him today.
But I think it's worth noting that we can't force Jerome Township to concede their boundaries.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Yeah, I mean, I'm aware the community authorities have been successful here in Ohio in the past.
Yes, sir.
And one thing that I don't understand is who has oversight over these authorities? I mean, I'm hearing some allegations here, and with the homeowners, do they take issue and head to the courthouse? Is there a body out there that oversees this to ensure that they are complying with their bylaws and serving the very purpose for which this was intended?
Rick, I got that email, and our plan was to let the meeting occur tomorrow, talk with the representative, the Attorney General, and talk with the Union County Prosecutor. They seem to be the ones that may be able to address that question, and I'll bring you an answer.
Well, and part of the,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
the issue of the board and who's on the board is based upon the Ohio Revised Code. It sets those requirements, and it's not something that any of the jurisdictions have the ability to change. So the members that are on the board, they're set up and structured so that typically, or and maybe in all cases, the developers do have the majority of the voting members on the board, and that's all by Ohio Revised Code.
You know, in my view, there's two issues here. One is getting the fire services paid for and accomplished, and that's the path staff is taking us down. You know, the second issue is really what's going on with that community authority, and I think that's something that can be dealt with later, and you know, that's your right to do that. But we need to separate those two pieces. Let's get this piece done, and then whatever the residents want to do with respect to that community authority, I'm sure that the remedies will be there, and maybe staff can enlighten us next week. So, yeah.
We'll bring you a memo, best of our ability, Mike.
Yeah. I think it's just another example, though, where from the beginning, which is several years ago, when we were in the original conversations, that everybody was, this memo we would suggest, and I think we've had previous memos, that everybody was walking down the same path, and then in the end, as we've seen time and time again, Jerome Township is the entity that ultimately refused to participate. We need to, you know, I don't know, there's nothing we can never do about those things, but I guess that from my standpoint, even though it might not have been our responsibility because it is a township responsibility, because they are residents of the incorporated Dublin, that, you know, we should have probably stayed a little bit more on top of it to see what was going on. But now, to moving forward, because we can't do anything about the past, to really stay and, you know, make sure that it's moving forward to a positive resolution. And, you know, we do know that the chief said that everyone is being served by Washington Township and would continue to get excellent service while this is being worked through.
Yeah, and when we started having recent discussions with the township, that's one of the points that we made. We recognize these are our residents, and that we wanted to work with the township to find resolution to this. And the issue of the billing that needs to take place, we said we understand the issues that the township has with that, and we're willing to work with the township and set up the mechanisms for the billing. So we agree, and we want to do what we can to move this process forward.
I'm sort of curious about the township upgrading their rights to get involved in this. I don't think I understand that. What they said, why they're not participating at a higher level, Jerome Township, in this.
We have a long history with that, John. So first and foremost with the 33 corridor process that went all the way from Marysville, Union County, and every township in between except them to get things done. So that's the problem. Washington Township recently abdicated that whole area of the Hayden Run and the corridor and turned it all back over to Columbus, didn't ask for anything because that was the right thing to do. So we just have issues down there. There's an election coming up.
That's what I was going to say.
Maybe
There's
the
3
climate will
elected
change.
officials. They don't seem to be doing anything to remediate this problem, so I just don't understand it.
Mr. Wolf, we don't, please, if you'd like to come forward, if you can keep it brief. Please.
No, I would just like to clarify what the fundamental problem in this is. When a purchaser buys property in Tartan Ridge, he's presented or should be presented with the Declaration of Covenants. In some cases we were, in some cases we weren't. The declaration as it was written basically says that they can collect a maximum of the amount of the Washington Township Fire and EMS fee. Okay, that's the way the declaration's written. That's the most that they could charge. What's happening is that in the petition that formed the community authority, the developer also wanted to collect a road improvement or road assessment fee for road improvements that were required by the city of Dublin. Unfortunately, the way the declaration was written, it was flawed. It did not allow him, it did not afford the developer the opportunity to collect both the fire fee and the 4 Mills road assessment fee. Okay? So in 2011 and 2012, there were 2 attempts. The developer tried to amend the declaration so that he could now collect both fees. All right? And he failed. It failed. So now they're amending the declaration, which basically is having the same result as he tried 2 years ago without any vote by the residents. And ultimately what happens, if we sign these easements, now the community authority basically has a blank check that they can charge whatever they want. I think it says 4 Mills in there, but there's no accountability what the money goes for. The original intent of the declaration was for the community authority to provide fire and EMS services to the residents of Tartan Ridge. And this is a fundamental problem. Yes, we know if we sign an easement, we're going to get fire services. We really don't have a problem with that. If we pull an alarm, someone's going to come to our homes. The issue is we signed contracts on our properties to which were attached this declaration of the covenants and restrictions. And the way the document was written did not accomplish what they intended. And we understand that, but that's what goes with your property. And so the developer has been trying every which way he can to get that 4 Mills road improvement fee. So now the way he's done it is, okay, let's sever the fire and EMS responsibility. Now we can collect our 4 Mills because we're not limited by the cap that's in the declaration.
The document was totally flawed from day one because it was 4 mills for the roads. It was 2/10 of a mill for fire, as I recall reading through it, for fire and EMS service. There was never.
No, the declaration says that the maximum that they could charge the Jerome
But
Township
where did I see
residents
2/10 of a mill?
is the cap of the Washington
Fire and
Township.
EMS.
Fire and EMS, yes, sir.
Well, there's never been 2/10 of a mill. It's usually 6, 7, 8 mills.
He had every right to charge us the full rate. No, the developer had every right to charge us the full rate, and most of the residents of Jerome Township, and I'll speak for myself, we're more than happy to pay Washington Township for their fire fee. The document that we signed at closing, or that was provided to us at closing, says that's the max that he could assess us. The documents, while we've had several legal reviews of the document, and all the legal reviews come up the same way. The document is flawed. So now he's trying to amend it so he can do the road improvements and the fire improvement and the fire fee. That's the fundamental problem of all this. And now he's succeeded. He's passed this through without any approvals, without any consideration. In fact, Caleb Bell sent us today the amended declaration. He's the counsel for Washington Township. The community authority nor their legal counsel provided this, neither of them provided the document to the Tartan Ridge residents. We had to get it from the Washington Township Council. Right. So that's the fundamental issue. It's not if we want to pay for fire, we're more than happy to pay for fire. I'm more than happy to pay for fire. But it's that additional 4 mills that fundamentally my contract says he can't collect it, and that's for the last 2 years. That's what he's been trying to do, is amend the declaration so he can. That's the fundamental issue. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Maurer?
Your Honor, members of council and of management, I'm moved to add urgent request to citizenry to appear at the Down syndrome art exhibit coming up. Art is, by definition, an intense struggle. You see something that has to be clarified, and you have obstacles with outside and within you to do it. Persons with Down syndrome have additional struggle, and my experience in reacting to the most recent Down syndrome art display was one of piercing insight. The discovery which a person with Down syndrome has is driven with additional force and is profoundly moving. So I urge citizenry to attend that display and speak with people who are involved in it. Last time I was up here, I said that I was lyrically moved when moving around the city to see the flowers put in by city management. This time, when I went around the city, it was something different. You wouldn't think that a golf ball would produce a tremendous struggle. When a magnified golf ball, and I run into one everywhere in the city, and all of them are a stunning discovery, with one exception. And that one is the golf ball which says, Irish is an attitude. With somebody in heaven or hell or purgatory or within and beyond those boundaries would explain to me what that statement means. I think it is a mindless statement inviting mindless responses. So if I get my club out, I'll hit that ball out of the park. My mood changes. Last time I was here, you were on the verge, I think, of inviting the university football coaches to do their rally here again, and you had raised, the city had raised $25,000 to that project. I realize that I'm the only person in Franklin County who is opposed to that thing, but the comfort I take from it is that the sides are equal. I don't know whether you have acquired the bunch to come here again. I've mentioned to you that football has nothing to do with university. The word university has the word universe, which means that it examines the universe and humankind which is in that universe. And contributing to that, the disruption and the corruption of football adds nothing or gets in the way. Let's see, what else do I have? Once I get my 3 concerts out of the way, I plan on coming back here again. And I'm fascinated by the electoral picture this time. It's, you know, it's conceivable that there might be a whole new council, which I'd have to break in if I came up here again. So with that, and I don't know how to read the electorate this time, I tell you. I don't know. So with that, I must leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mallard. Moving on to our consent agenda, would ask if any council member wishes to remove one or more of the 5 items listed on this evening's consent agenda.
Tim, I have a quick question on 5213. I don't know if you want to pull it and ask the questions, or council?
Go ahead.
Well, if we pull it, then it'll fall in order of the rest of the agenda.
Okay.
We'll just move it.
All right, pull that one out then for me, please.
Okay. That's 5213?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would ask council then, or I'm sorry, I would move for approval of the 4 remaining items on the consent agenda with the exception of resolution 52-13. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ann, would you call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Salee.
Yes.
Mayor Lecklider.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker.
Yes.
Mrs. Waring. Mr. Gerber.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to the first reading of ordinances, beginning with ordinance 75-13.
Appropriating a 1.836 acre more or less fee simple interest 0.673 acre more or less utility easement and a 0.088 acre more or less temporary construction easement from the Thomas Family Limited Partnership.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. McDaniel.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'll address, if you don't mind, Mayor, both ordinance 75 and 7613. They're related. This is a continuance of the legislation that you approved, resolution you passed last month regarding an intent to appropriate. These are ordinances to appropriate the property relative to the extension of Emerald Phase 8 involving the Thomas property. You have maps in your report, and we showed the map at the last meeting. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions? Comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll have the second reading of 75-13 at the October 14th council meeting. Moving forward with ordinance 76-13.
Appropriating a 0.300 acre more or less fee simple interest with a 0.234 acre more or less encumbered as present but occupied from the Thomas Family Limited Partnership.
I'll introduce that as well.
Thank you. Anything to add, Mr. McDaniel? Okay.
Nothing to add.
All right, very good. If there aren't any questions, we'll have the second reading of ordinance 76-13 on October 14th. Well, just that quickly, we're finished with our first reading of ordinances. Moving on to resolutions, and the one that was pulled from the consent agenda, that would be 52-13.
This is authorizing the city manager to execute an easement to AEP Ohio for the property located at 6353 Shire Rings Road.
Introduction, please. Thank you. Mike?
I just had a quick question. This is to power a new automated truck and car wash for the city. And I'm sorry I didn't talk to anybody earlier. I was out of town, so I didn't really get a chance to get with anybody late last week. I'd like to know, that backs up to a number of properties in a residential area. Are we going to have issues with noise, sound, any of those? How close to that back property line is this car wash? Do we have one now?
I am actually speaking on behalf of Brian Ashford this evening. I'm Darrell Seiler, the fleet manager. At this point, we already have no problem with noise because there's already a barrier around our property line. It's at the end of the what's currently now our car wash, but there's no heavy-duty car wash undercarriage that's in it, and that's what this is going to be providing, is the power to the undercarriage wash.
And Darrell, isn't it on the east end of the property?
Yes, it is.
So it doesn't back up to the...
Okay, because we've had issues with those residents, and I didn't know how much noise that might create. You know, Amy, that's your ward, so I know we've heard from people over there, and what is that, Tullamore?
It's on the northeast corner.
Kendall Ridge.
Kendall Ridge, right, okay.
Yes.
It's away from this.
All right, that's all I had then. I just wanted to make sure that we were cognizant of the fact that we don't, you know, if this is a really all-world super Benford power washer with a lot of noise, we need to make sure that we're cognizant.
Understood.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann, would you call for the vote, please?
Yes, Mr. Gerber? Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Saleh? Mrs. Boring? Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Mr. Zerker?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 54-13.
Accepting the amounts and rates and authorizing tax levies.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. We are bringing forward this evening a routine piece of legislation that is brought forward each year based on the Franklin County Budget Commission's determination of what our property taxes will be received in the upcoming years based on the inside millage as well as the city's voted millage. Consistent with the CIP that was passed a few weeks ago, the 2014 through 2018 CIP, that allocated 0.35 mils to the Parkland Acquisition Fund and the remaining 1.4 of the inside millage to the Capital Improvement Tax Fund for the total of 1.75 mils. The voted millage, 1.2 mils, that is currently in place for the police operating levy. And just for council information, the effective rate for those residents is 0.204752. And on commercial properties within Dublin, that 1.2 mils of the police levy, the effective rate is 0.314205 mils. So with that, we are requesting approval of this resolution so that we can provide it on to the Franklin County Budget Commission.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Hearing none, Ann, if you call for the vote, please.
Vice Mayor Salee,
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider,
Yes.
Mr. Gerber,
Yes?
Mrs. Voorhees.
Yes.
Mr. Keenan.
Yes.
Mr. Reiner.
Yes.
And Ms. Janice Zerko.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Resolution 55-13.
Adopting a statement of services for proposed annexation of 4.6 acres more or less from Washington Township, Franklin County, to the city of Dublin.
I'll introduce it.
While we're at it, why don't we do Resolution 56-13 as well?
And this is adopted a statement of regarding possible incompatible land uses and zoning buffer for a proposed annexation of 4.6 acres more or less from Washington Township, Franklin County, to the city of Dublin, Ohio, as required by Section 709.0223C of the Ohio Revised Code.
I'll introduce that too.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Gunnerman.
Thank you. That's was the first item I was going to mention, is that these are related items. We have a proposed annexation that's been filed. It's necessary for the city to approve these two resolutions within 20 days of that filing so that they can be present when the hearing is held, which I believe is October 15th. In any event, this is for 4.6 acres. It is east of Kaufman Road, just north of Forest Run. You can see it outlined in red here. This is an aerial photo that shows the area, generally running down to the creek, but not including the land up along Kaufman Road itself. It would actually be accessed from Nature Drive, and we would expect that it would probably require Nature Drive to be extended into this property in the future. This is the actual plat of annexation. It's been approved by the county engineer. These are actions that are required by the state statute. One of them essentially indicates the level of services that the city will provide, and the other indicates that the city will provide required buffers if necessary. The particular situation we have here, it's unlikely to occur, but the resolution is needed in any event. When Franklin County takes this item up, assuming everything is in order, it would be approximately 3 months from now that the city would be able to take up an actual ordinance to annex the property. You have to answer any other questions?
Questions, comments?
I had a question about the community plan designation was for medium density, and I know that that means something a little different in Dublin, and I'm curious what that figure is in the community plan.
I don't recall what the actual density is in the community plan for that. It's going to be fairly low. I would say probably it's going to be a single-family density, but I don't know the exact number.
Okay. Well, that would be.
I was curious too, because the original zoning for Washington Township says 4 single-family residences on this property, and I take it our zoning would increase that, you think?
Well, the couple different things going on there. The zoning that will automatically apply to this property once it's rezoned would get the 4 units. That's we're over 4 acres here. The zoning that will come in would require just a little below an acre for each parcel, so the most they could get out of it would be 4.
Okay.
So that's what we were referring to with the 4 units. I think they probably will want to rezone the property to something different than that, but I'm not sure in the end it will actually end up with more than 4 units, just a little different configuration.
I was more interested in the tax implications of this, so that's good to hear. Thank you.
I had a question, Gary, to follow up first on John's question. What is the Indian Run Meadows or Indian Run Woods or whatever it is that's right next to it, the Nature Drive area? What is the density ratio there?
I don't actually have that either. I'm going to guess.
Don't guess.
Let me look back and see that. I'd say when you include the green area that was in that particular subdivision towards the back, I'm going to guess that was about maybe 2.5 overall.
Per acre.
Mhm.
And so is that what you would be anticipating ultimately? A developer would come in and request different zoning to that?
Just off the top of my head, I think in general terms, that would be about the top that we would countenance it all.
And as you know, this property is next door to the Gable property, which I believe goes as far back as this property does it not?
You can more or less see it on the edge there.
Yeah. Has there been any discussions with the Gable people about
I
this
know
area?
that we touched on the subject when it was first brought up, suggesting that. We also looked over the property in terms of how streets might align going through it. That adjacent property figured prominently in the street arrangement as things go on in the future. We did not have any conversations with those adjacent properties. I don't know if the applicant did or not. I know his representative is here.
And did the church then next to the Gable property, did that ever annex into Dublin, or is it still in township?
This property here is the church I think you're referring to. So yes, that did annex. That's why it's in green.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Steve, it's routine that whenever we annex something in, that it's put in a straight R1 zoning, so that's just routine.
It actually goes into an R district instead of
Yeah, it's an R, it's our policy, and we do it with everything that comes in. And then, obviously, the applicant can ask for a rezoning, and may or may not get it.
one exception to that, but that's generally true.
Gary, I'm sort of curious, on this parcel that's in Washington Township to access this parcel, do we have to pay for right-of-way then from the landowners, or who pays for that?
In this case, I think this property, and I'm assuming that it's actually going to come in at a very low density overall. If that occurs, then I think we'll probably be adequate with the extension of Nature Drive, and that will probably be sufficient for this particular parcel all by itself. In the future, when this property comes in, I think we will have to have a discussion about potentially extending a street off of Kaufman, and that'll make it a little more difficult type of process.
Yeah.
And I know you haven't brought up the waiver yet, but it's in the materials that they're requesting an annexation fee waiver. What is, and the staff's position is to recommend that approval because it has been done in the past. What is the statistics of how many times we've done it versus not done it?
Boy, I don't know the statistics. I would say since I'll call it the end of the big annexations over on the west side of the city, which was probably six years ago, something in that order, quite a number of the small annexations similar to this one that have come in have in fact been in places that were entirely an island or very close to being an island. And I'm not aware that we've deviated in any of those. I think they all got a waiver. I don't know how many that is. I would guess probably 4 or 5.
And speaking of it as an island, I guess I wasn't viewing it as an island in my mind because it's a pretty big property piece. But my understanding was that the front of the property, which is not in question tonight, but that was split and sold off, the south end of it. I know it's been sold. It had a for sale sign and it's been sold, but was it split off from the other house? It's a vacant lot, you know.
Are you talking about this area?
Yes.
To my knowledge, it's not been split off yet, but I could be in error there.
So, Gary, if they want a rezoning, how will they get their access to Kaufman Road?
Initially, I would presume it would all be off Nature Drive.
Okay. Okay. again, I think we don't waive fees for large annexations. It's just that these little pockets of Washington Township, we are encouraging to come in the city. So we have consistent services.
We did set a policy along those lines probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. So that-
Yeah, actually, it's been in place, gosh, 10, 15 years, a long time. Any of the islands that they've requested, we've waived the fee that when they've annexed into the city.
Is the front property in Dublin now?
No,
No.
And they're not requesting that that property be brought in?
that's correct.
So you're going to have, in the zoning process, you're going to have all those people on Forest Run come in and
Yeah,
object to having all that traffic
coming through there.
coming through, and it's one way. I just would like to put up a warning that that's my concern at this time, that it doesn't seem like it's very practical as far as safety needs go, or toward the benefit, or for the, oh my, that means all those people only have one way in and one way out, and we're adding to it. So that's a concern of mine.
Yeah, ingress, egress off Kaufman in
Yep.
another fashion is going to be difficult at best because
Right.
we don't like those curb cuts out there. So there you have it.
It's okay if there's only 4 homes built, but
Yeah,
there's, 3 times that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of traffic.
I'd like to ask Mr. Reynolds if he'd come forward, please. Having heard all the conversation, if you could comment.
Again, thank you, Council. Jack Reynolds, Smith and Hale, 37 West Broad Street, Columbus, Ohio. Yes, we are splitting the property off to the rear. The intention is to extend Nature Drive and develop a small subdivision with 4 lots. So put your mind at ease in terms of the density. We have sat down with planning staff and shared with them what the thought would be on the layout of the lots. The gentleman who is purchasing the property is currently a resident of Dublin, has children in the Kaufman School District, and would like to maintain his residency within the district so his kids can continue in the school boundaries there. So again, just to assuage your concerns about density and access and everything, it will come off of Nature Drive. There will be only 4 units that will be built on the 4.6 acre tract.
Thank you. Put that on the record.
And you,
We've heard your concerns and we've anticipated, so we'll take that in under advisement.
Jack, you are intending to do a rezoning, though?
Yes, we
Even though
are.
It'll be 4 acres,
Yes.
4 lots.
Yes.
not your first Dublin rodeo. Right? Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Reynolds. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, and if you'd call for the vote first on Resolution 55-13.
Boring?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee? Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider?
Yes. And on Resolution 56-13?
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee?
Yes.
Very good. And just for the record, we're going to come back to the waiver later in the agenda, not much later. But first, we will consider Resolution 57-13.
Authorizing the city manager to execute a cooperative agreement with the Village of Shawnee Hills for the construction of intersection improvements at Dublin Road and Glick Road.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you. Mr. Hammersmith, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, Paul and I are going to do this one
Okay.
together. And the resolution provides for the execution of a cooperative agreement between the City of Dublin and the Village of Shawnee Hills for the intersection improvements at Dublin Road and Glick Road. And the memo and the attached document outline the terms of the agreement as to the contributions. Engineering staff has been working with representatives from ODOT, Delaware County, and the Village of Shawnee Hills for quite some time to determine what the solution for the intersection will be. And we've had recent discussions with the administration from Shawnee Hills to work out the terms of this agreement. Shawnee Hills will also be filing an application, an OPWC grant application and loan application. And we've received positive feedback from the requests that they've made or their conversations that they've had with representatives from Delaware County. And that would result in the City of Dublin's contribution in the area of $550,000. We currently have $500,000 programmed in our capital improvements program for the next 5-year period in 2014. And then the additional $250,000 loan that's being requested by Shawnee Hills, the city's committed to retire that debt at $25,000 a year for the next 10 years. It's a no-interest loan, and we'll pay for the retirement of that debt through our state highway fund. And so with that, we're asking council to authorize us to execute the cooperative agreement with Shawnee Hills.
I think it probably warrants some hallelujahs, maybe?
Hallelujah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it's, this is the furthest we've been so far on this project, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to get the right-of-way acquired in short order and be able to move forward with the improvements of the intersection. I'm not sure when OPWC will make their decision. Is it in December?
Typically, we'll get an initial indication in December or January.
If things go smoothly, construction would occur next year?
Yeah, the soonest would be after July 1st of next year.
Marcia, I have a question about this particular agreement. Where is Delaware County signing on to an agreement?
Yeah, Delaware County and Union County will be signing an agreement, and basically it's Delaware County committing to Shawnee Hills to fund $100,000 of the project. And then we are also going to sign off on their agreement verifying the adoption of this resolution by City Council.
So that will come back to us, or you do all that?
Yes.
Okay, guess what? Because by this, you'll be signing off on all that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Come on, John, you got to say something.
No, I tell you, it's been 16 years. And it's been 3 jurisdictions, and that's been the problem, really. If it was Dublin, it would have been done 16 years ago.
Yeah.
But we've got the state of Ohio involved, Shawnee Hills involved, Columbus, Delaware, and everybody else. So it's been a good fight, and thank you, Marcia, for your efforts, and you, Paul, for trying to get this thing resolved, because that is our northern access over the river and out of here. So it's very important that we get this resolved and get the traffic moving. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's nothing else, thank you. Excuse me?
Design, I'd like to see what, we didn't have it in our packet.
Yeah, we've briefed you on before. This is really an interim solution. It's not a design year solution, which would take us out to about 25 years. Part of the reason for that is really just the impacts on adjoining properties and the right-of-way acquisition that would be necessary. That would result from extending these dedicated left turn lanes further away from the intersection. So we really call this an interim solution. It's probably a 10 to 15-year solution. And the result of that was shortening these left turn lanes and, again, reducing that right-of-way impact to adjoining properties. We think this really does have a very good shelf life. What's really been missing from the intersection have been these dedicated left turn lanes, which has really impacted safety and congestion as it's presently configured.
Can I ask you a question about stacking? Okay, so if we have a left-hand turn lane, what's the stacking? What are you figuring, number of cars roughly on this?
You're probably between 15 and 20 cars. If you look, just going northbound, this extends past Wendy's all the way down nearly to where the shopping center entrance is. That's where the taper begins, and stacking after the taper from this point, heading all the way north. So we've got, I think, 225 feet of stacking.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And do we anticipate left turn arrows?
Yes, yes, there'll be. I don't know that we've completely settled on the phasing, but I mean, there will be protected lefts. We're just not sure when that call will happen, if we'll set the loops back like we normally do. So wait for that third vehicle and giving away our secrets. Got to be careful of that.
Okay. Ann, would you call for the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Salee?
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
I'm going to abstain due to my role as a Ohio Public Works Commissioner.
Ms. Janice Zerker?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber? Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're finished now with the resolution portion of our agenda, moving on to the category designated as other. That's a request for a fee waiver.
The annexation.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a request for a fee waiver for the 4.6 acre annexation from Washington Township to the city of Dublin.
Is that Marcia or Paul or?
It's based upon the previous resolutions that we discussed, and staff is recommending approval of the waiver.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Mr. Reynolds, you're not required to speak. You good?
Good.
Good. Thank you. All right. Ian, if you call for the vote, please.
Mr. Nissy Zerker?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee?
Yes.
Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mrs. Boring?
Yes.
Mr. Gerber? Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Staff comments?
Yeah, we have a few this evening. First, apologize for the amount of information that was at your desk this evening. With some of the quick turnaround from the meetings last Monday night, we wanted to get as much information that you requested back to you. And the first item is the potential for a tour of some area projects. One, the Wagenbrenner project in Grandview, and then also the Crawford Hoying project in Upper Arlington. So we'll provide that information to you. We're looking at October 9th to coordinate the two of them. And I'll have ask Ann to follow up with council tomorrow to see if that works for your schedule and who has an interest in attending. And then we'll work out the logistics after we figure out how many people are going. And we've also talked about we'll provide an invitation or notice to P&Z and BZA, so if they have an interest in attending, they can attend as well. The next stack of information related to the Bridge Street District information, there's a clipped group of memos and documents that were provided. We don't expect any feedback tonight, other than we wanted to make sure that you are aware that these are the questions that were raised at the last Monday night's workshop with City Council with regard to Bridge Street. Probably the one key item that we did send out on Friday related to the engagement, planning and zoning, and the public engagement process. So if council has any feedback on that, either tonight or at some point later, please provide that feedback or information to us. We'd be happy to take that into account. And we are looking at your suggestion of the October 22nd Homeowners Association meeting as an opportunity to review the Bridge Street District and to look at also having some small breakout groups that can discuss different elements of the Bridge Street District. So any feedback you have on that, feel free to pass it along to Ann, to me, or to Terry will be fine. Anything you need to add?
Would the potential Wagenbrenner project fall under the purview of the ARB?
We'll check to see. It may. It may.
Okay. That would be important if we were aware of that.
The next item relates to a memo that was in your packet, ForFest, which is the celebration that we're having in Dublin on October 3rd related to the President's Cup. And as part of that event, we're asking council to waive the provisions of Section 111.09 of the code for the designated areas in the historic district, and this relates to open container. And this is for the period of 5 p.m. through 10 p.m.
And this is for just the area that is being blocked off, right?
Yes.
And there wouldn't be any,
And I'll let Allison can provide some additional detail on that.
so people cannot take an open container outside of the enclosed area is my question.
Yeah, and we have it completely fenced with our orange freestanding fencing. And the other part of that is they can't walk from our area into, like, they can't go into Brazen Head with a beer and vice versa. So they have to stay in our area.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So on that one, if we could get a motion from council to approve waiving the
moved.
provisions.
I'll second.
Thank you. Ann, would you call for the vote?
Mr. Gerber?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Salee?
No.
Mrs. Boring? Yes. Mayor Lucklider?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
And Mr. Nissy Zerker?
Yes.
I have a question. I had a resident approach me today, really concerned about the traffic and I've heard it from a couple other residents. I know Rick has as well. How is the traffic going to be managed that evening? Are we going to completely ruin everybody's night that's not attending Fest?
I certainly hope not. We have done some education, and Sandra can speak to some of those. Oh, Heinz wants to tell you about the actual traffic flow. But we do have some signs that are going up soon to let them know. You want to specifically?
Well, they need to be directed from the freeway.
Well, the actually where everything's going to be closed is going to be, there's going to be a soft closure for eastbound at France and 33. The hard closure will be at Corbin's Mill, and that'll allow entrance into the Dublin Plaza. Coming from the north, going south, you'll be able to get to all the city lots. So the soft closure will be at Emerald Parkway. The hard closure will be at the library, so you can actually still get into the lots. Coming northbound as well, there will be a soft closure at Rings, and then the hard closure will actually be at Short Street. So there'll be access to all the parking lots. There should be ample signage and education this week to prepare everybody for this. And it'll be similar to the event. You might remember, I think it was 7 years ago, we had an event, the Great American Race, where we did the same thing during a weeknight rush hour, and it worked out very well.
Are we doing anything, though, regarding signs on the freeway, working with the highway department so that people don't even bother getting off on 160?
Right. Hopefully we're getting message boards out this week, and I think the problem and the reason they haven't gotten out before this week is because they're being used at all the multiple construction sites around the city. So we have a limited number of signs, but there'll be messaging before with plenty of time to get people the answers.
You know, Marilee, that was my topic for roundtable tonight, was that we have sufficient signage, not only the surrounding areas like out on 270, but also through the neighborhoods. I don't think everybody reads the paper or looks on our website like we'd all like them to do. And I know with the Irish Festival race that occurred, there were a lot of residents that said, well, I didn't read that flyer. I didn't know anything about it. So I think some signage would help quite a bit. And I would start now so that people can plan, because there's an awful lot of people that will be getting off work and...
I agree, and the thinking is usually that we want the signage and the messaging to go up right before the event, the week before the event, because if you put it up a month before, people
they'll
don't
forget. Yep.
Right, they'll forget. So that's why we're doing it closer to the event.
What is the anticipated attendance?
We're really thinking between 5 and 10,000. In some sense, I've been saying between 5 people and 500,000 because, as a one-time event, it's sort of hard to tell. But our best guess is between 5 and 10,000.
Probably very weather dependent as well.
Yeah, it's very weather dependent.
And Allison, one memo I read, you've done 3 different types of attempts to direct contact residents in this area. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we had a public meeting last Thursday evening. We had one resident attend.
Okay. And we have had conversations and discussions with HDBA so that they're aware. I don't know if the businesses are putting signs up in their places, in their establishments or not, but we're trying to get as much information out as we can.
Okay. Is there anything else, Marcia?
And the last item, just to let you know.
If I can just add to the outreach, everything that Allison said, but we went as far as beyond Sawmill Road and beyond Tuttle, so people there would know to not come onto the freeway, and then went as far out into Marysville, working with the larger businesses there and the media, and then beyond Sawmill Road as well.
You know, and Sandra, I think some people have heard about this, but the question I hear is, okay, how do I get to here to park? So I think there's going to have to be a little bit more to share with them on parking and how they get in and get out. That's
and a letter is going again tomorrow with maps.
Yeah. Okay. I know you try hard. I know.
Thank you.
Thanks. And finally, as you're aware, we've been fortunate to get additional funding for the 270-33 interchange through MORPC. We also anticipate the additional funding through the track process. And as a result of that, we had a discussion, I don't know if it was a month ago, with council about looking at aesthetic enhancements and landscaping and Sarah Ott and Jeannie Willis have been working very closely with ODOT and David Guion of the Arts Council to look at those type of issues. And next Monday evening, there's an invitation in your folder this evening about some focus group discussions that we're looking at to get information back and feedback. We have an artist that we've been working with and also a landscape designer. So just to give council a heads up, the letter or the flyer is going out tomorrow. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you. John, would you like to start roundtable?
Let's see, want to wish Mike a happy birthday coming up. Congratulations. Yeah. Hey, love the golf balls. I think they were great. I think they're very interesting. I think got a lot of positive comments on them. If we had more time, we probably could have hired artists to do each one of them, but I think they're really pretty cool and very representative of the people who were kind enough to sponsor them. So I want to thank all those people. If you want to make a contribution to the arts on 270 33 interchange, I understand there's been a lot of meetings between Sarah and Dr. Dave and ODOT over this, and they put in a lot of time in this. So if you want to say something about the visuals and the impression that people are going to have about our city crossing 270, the meeting is September 30th, 3 to 4:30. There's a sort of a session, and 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So if you want to get your 2 cents worth on the aesthetics of our city and how people are going to perceive us, I would hope that you would make that meeting. And the other thing I just want to say is congratulations to Angel again from the Finance Department for winning the Operating Budget Award, highest form of recognition in government budgeting, and this marks the 10th consecutive Distinguished Budget Presentation Award the city has received. So Marcia started a great tradition, and Angel is following that tradition, so congratulations. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Mary Lee?
I had some follow-up questions on the memos that we received. On the October 9th date for the potential tour, what time of day are they referring to?
Actually, that's up to council. We haven't discussed specific timeframes, but we were looking at potentially between 5 and 6 to start, and they were, we can have dinner, we can schedule dinner at Matt Miller and then move to Upper Arlington, or we can start in Upper Arlington and then move forward or go to Grandview and have dinner there. So part of it will be how early does council want to start, and then we can coordinate some timeframes around that.
I'm concerned about how soon it gets dark also, so I won't get the total visual impact.
I mean, if council's willing or able to go earlier, we'll look at scheduling something 5 o'clock if that works, but I know sometimes that's a little difficult.
Well, probably what might help us with that would be to actually tour both sites first and then meet to discuss what we've seen and eat dinner or whatever, but do that afterwards.
And we can do that. We could start maybe in Upper Arlington and then go.
And we could just meet all there,
Yeah, exactly.
On the Bridge Street District zoning regulations evaluation, I appreciate the memo, and my one question was, when do we expect to get the final report of the recommended changes?
Steve or Gary?
That's a little hard to predict at this point. I think we had the Planning Commission took up a good deal of this subject last week, and I think they are intending to give you a first section dealing with process, probably after, I think they intend to finish that in 2 weeks. And they would like to forward that on to you, and they'd like, if not to get full and complete approval of that language, they would at least like you to sign off on the intent of that particular language. And it would be helpful, and we've advised the Planning Commission that it would be helpful if we could make that assumption as we went into the other sections, because there is some interrelatedness. So as we went into the other sections, it would be helpful to have at least an understanding from council that they intend to approve a process very similar to the one Planning Commission is working on now. But I expect that one to come out of the Planning Commission in 2 weeks.
So by our second meeting in October, we should have their recommendations for the process.
For the process, that's right.
I think that will be really important that we have it no later than that. You know, we want to be moving this forward so that we can make the recommended changes, hopefully still this calendar year, so that we're moving into the new year with whatever changes, you know, we feel we need to be making. Thank you. The OU multi-tenant building, I had a question about on the second page. It stated that in the note, a modification of the EDA may require council action. And my question was, like, can you sort of anticipate or give us an example of something that might be required to change in the ADA?
Yeah, I think technically the official transfer of that land, if they build this building in such a way that encroaches sub-area 2, I'm sorry, yes, no, sub-area 1, which I would anticipate that it's probably going to be built somewhat on the original land they purchased, the original 14 acres. It has the 3 buildings on it, and then it might go on to like an out parcel area based on what I've heard. Now, this isn't set in stone, so I'm anticipating it's going to overlap that sub-area 1. If that's the case, we have not yet transferred sub-area 1 completely, and we may have to modify the transfer of that land or finalize it should it encroach on that area. So that's yet to be seen based on how the site lays out, but we haven't seen how it's laying out just yet.
And are we using a process for approval or assistance through the process as we did with the hospital, so that you're kind of taking a team and working with them through the process?
Exactly, yeah. Our whole goal, and I mentioned the words early and often in the memo, and that's intended to not only work early and often with our staff as soon as they name who they're who's going to be doing the proposal or who the successful proposer is, who will actually be doing the project. We've asked them to get with us at staff, wrap a team around that group as soon as they name them so we can start down that road. And what I'm trying to anticipate here is getting before Planning and Zoning Commission and yourselves relative to the public input process early and often as well, so that we can be working many things simultaneously in order to meet their timeframes that they want to meet. And hopefully we'll, you know, cross the finish line and meet those timeframes, and if not, we won't. But we'll do the best we can. I just wanted to relay to you all that we want to work with them to try to do that the best we can.
And since you're standing up there, and another memo on the office building parking demand that we discussed at a earlier council meeting, when will we be getting this report that you make reference to?
Well, we're anticipating early December for that report.
Until that.
And potentially, Marsh and I discussed potentially a conversation with council maybe in that time frame, depending on how your schedules work. That's our internal goal.
Thank you. We had a MORPC board meeting last Thursday, and there was nothing particularly critical on the agenda, but I will give the material to Ann, and if anybody's interested, it's always in our back council chamber. One thing that is going to be going on in the next 3 weeks, the Regional Policy Committee, which I chair, and Steve Campbell from the City of Columbus co-chairs, develops and updates the public policy agenda for MORPC. And so that's being updated at this point. We sort of started this tradition that the vice chair of the group chairs that small subcommittee, brings it back to the Public Policy Committee, who gives it to the administrative team of the commission and ultimately the commission's board. So if you have any issues or things that you would like to see MORPC be responsive to, you can go on their website and see the current public policy agenda, and so that gives you a reference point at least. Obviously things like environment, food, transportation. These are issues that they typically watch and monitor the legislation for. But if you have some suggestions or ideas, if you would just email them to me as quickly as possible, we'll have that on the agenda for their consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
Dana, I have some further questions on this parking spaces. My concern is the use of the buildings that we're looking at. For example, a call center may need more parking places, but they're kind of a not reliable business. I mean, they can move in a heartbeat and leave us with all that paved area. Plus, as far as tax situation goes, their average base is not as high as some others. So I'm kind of concerned, I am concerned about the possible uses when you're looking at this, that it's high economic type of use that will benefit us and not be one that can easily move at the drop of a hat or a better incentive somewhere else. So will that be part of your, I'm hoping that's part of your analysis when you look at this.
Yes. I really think that, yeah, no, there's really two things going on with this. One is the parking ratio issue. Much of that analysis will be in comparison to actual, I'll call them economic development deals that we've looked at or competed for and or won and or lost. And we'll be able to share that information and where we think those buildings aren't as competitive as a result. And that would involve different uses like you're suggesting. There may be medical, could be, which has kind of different parking situations than shifted call centers like you're talking about. We also are studying and looking at the competitiveness of our buildings relative to the changing dynamic in the workplace and how square footage is used now in new buildings that are being built, and how will our existing buildings who are reaching, in some cases, 25 years old, going to compete with that new construction. And it's really, we're really just trying to raise everyone's, awareness of what we think we might be up against, and just so you all can, and try to give you that information as to what we're seeing in trends and what we're facing, so that there can just be a good discussion about policy and policy direction on how you want to pursue those. So, and this, you might recall too, that we had identified both Metro Center and Blazer Parkway as two of the commercial neighborhoods that we wanted to really take a hard look at area plans for in the budget. And we, in our, I think in your council retreat and in the budget hearing processes, we've talked about the need to take a look at those two neighborhoods specifically relative to competitiveness. And that's really something we've been working on for quite a while.
I think what brought it up was the last discussion we had about losing all that green space for that use. And I'm thinking like, well, what is a use? Is it worth, and I understand, but we are now, as I understand, our percentage of emptiness is really not that bad.
No, not at all. In fact, our commercial, the rate of our occupancy is, we're running better than 85%, which is good. But it's, as we do well in this city of Dublin is plan, and we want to plan for the future relative to keeping these parks competitive. And so certainly sensitive to all the landscaping and the green space, and very sensitive to that, and we'll stay sensitive to that through our study. So
just hope that you will help us understand what the uses are.
Yes.
And related to those parking places. I think that's critical.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The other thing is I have been certified as a certified travel ambassador. Hope you all will take advantage of that program, because it's really very interesting in order to show that Columbus has a lot to offer to tourism. However, and I may be remembering this wrong, but I mentioned Grandview Heights last time, and pictures of that, and people gave me this look. And on the Greater Columbus Entertainment Districts, along with German Village and Brewery District, is listed Grandview Heights. Lo and behold, offers unique restaurants, nightlife, and shopping along Grandview Avenue, and I also noticed we're going there. So when we go this tour, I hope you all look at this area as an entertainment district that has been identified by Experience Columbus. But again, I know, I just had to, I was surprised. And we can look at how they're developing, you know, their landscape. Not that I want to copy any other place, but it's kind of interesting to see their outdoor patios and how lively they are on that. Also, I would encourage anybody, when next time that program comes through, a lot of facts and figures I did not know about Columbus, and I attended with several hotel people that it was very, very interesting, learned a lot, and it was a fun thing to do, and now I get to volunteer officially as an ambassador. Congratulations. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Mike?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I want to give kudos to the Services Department. I've had a lot of comments about the way the city's shaping up for the President's Cup, and the flower beds, just the entire attention to detail. At least a half dozen people just in the last couple of days have come up and mentioned how nice everything looks, so appreciate all that effort. The golf balls were a really big success, as you know. I think we probably could have sold another 18, 36, 54 of those, because I had people call. They thought we were doing those, and they wanted a golf ball. And I'm going, well, you probably get one, but you've got to pay for it. So maybe next go around or whatever, that could be something we could focus on. And then thanks to Chief Von Exberg for your memo on the cameras that I asked about last week. I appreciate the follow-up. Looks like that might be down the road a little bit, but I do appreciate you looking into it, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Mike. Rick?
I brought up my first item with respect to the signage and letting everybody know what's happening with on the event next Thursday, or a week from Thursday. Also, I think most of you know are aware that I am attending the Dublin Police Academy. And I have to tell you, I encourage every resident, everybody on council to participate in that endeavor when the time comes up. It's very enlightening to learn what our police force does day in, day out, how meticulous, how professional they are, and I'm having a lot of fun. I know, Mary Lee, you were in the first class, and I just encourage everybody to try it.
Thank you, Rick. Amy?
I just have one item, and that was just to report that at our last meeting, Rich Weber brought us the Dublin Historical Society DVD, and I went to their program on Thursday night, and it was very fascinating. I've been on the third grade tours with both of my kids. I thought I knew about historic Dublin, but I found out a lot of interesting things. So in your spare time, which I know you have a lot of, take time to watch that DVD. It's really fascinating, and they're talking about getting a reissue of a book that came out a few years ago, because they talked about all the different facts that came out of that book and then this new DVD. And so we have such a rich history, and it's important that we all have an appreciation for it. And every time I hear something or related to our history, I learn something new. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. I don't have anything. We're adjourned. Thank you.